Hi, the title of this video is basically clickbait because I like shitty puns sometimes. I didn't make any big, life-ruining mistakes over my course of playing the game Gigantic, though I did make a small, we'll say, miscalculation that changed my experience compared to my expectation. More on that later. I was also considering going even more clickbaity with it and calling this Motiga's, which is the developer of the game's, gigantic mistake. And then I would basically be like, Gigantic is a mistake because of Overwatch, lol. But not really. Actually, the title of this video is clickbait. I don't know if Gigantic is a mistake. It's hard to say what its fate will be this early on into its life, but it's easy to look on and imagine how releasing a game like this into an increasingly saturated market could end poorly for its developers. Public opinion that I've been hearing seems to be that the game is good, but people just aren't that interested in this kind of game right now. It's a shame because Gigantic was in development before Overwatch was even announced, so it's certainly not trying to be a rip-off or a cash grab at all, at least not in regards to Overwatch specifically. The company actually seems particularly passionate about the project. There's a story that I heard about the making of this game, which is actually the reason I gave it a shot in the first place. Late in development, all of the deals Motiga had previously made were falling through. They were desperately trying to find a publisher to pick up the title and fund it so that they could continue working, but it just wasn't happening. They ran out of money. Nobody could continue to be paid for the work they were doing on this project they'd dedicated the past 4 years of their life to, and things were looking very grim. Despite this, the next day, almost all of the employees still showed up, walked to their respective offices and desks, and kept working on the game anyway. In the face of such uncertainty, that's not a comfortable thing to do. Not everybody could just financially leave themselves in limbo like that, which is totally understandable, but almost every employee had the means, passion, and confidence to return to work that day and every day afterwards for the next 3 weeks before things finally started to look up. Thankfully, they were able to find somebody to fund them afterwards, which is why we see the game playable today. Now, I'm sure plenty of other companies would do the same thing in their shoes. I mean, game development is not a field that you generally go into if you don't have a passion for it, and I imagine it's hard not to get attached to just about anything you've put years of your life into, but it's still a super endearing story that illustrates their drive to continue working on something they were proud of, and shows us that this is not some soulless, detached attempt to milk a newly popular genre as an easy business decision. So I was like, yeah, alright, that's pretty cool, I'll check the game out, I think they've earned that much from me at least. Because, while I've never played a traditional MOBA, I do like these fast-paced action MOBA hybrid kind of games on a casual level at least. So I get in there. The tutorial is kind of long-winded, but I suppose this is an objective-based team game. It's important to make sure everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing and all, especially since you've got all these summon creatures and all these different phases of the giant team mascots that the game changes around and hinges upon. It can all be a little confusing. You've also got to do battle against the AI before you can play the game proper with other people, but again, it's understandable, and at least this time you can play who you want to, if who you want to play is unlocked for you, of course. I'm not entirely sure how it works, but it seems like you get a random or a semi-random selection of 5 characters unlocked if you're going free to play. I'm sure this pool of characters cycles around periodically, and of course you can unlock more characters with in-game currency, but for me that wasn't an option yet. So, let's see here. I wasn't fortunate enough to have my dog Tyto unlocked from the start, which is who I was gunning for ever since I saw my first screenshots of this game, just out of obligation, really. I thought I was going to be super adorable, because, you know, Ninox is my alias, and that's an owl. And I like owls, and I also really dig agile, fast, speedy characters, so here's this badass owl character. Literally has Swift in their name. Seems like a no-brainer. But anyway, not an option for now, so I opt to go for the next best thing. Trip is an edgy, emo, teenage assassin seemingly without passion or even a passing interest in anything in her life. So as somebody that heard an Evanescence song on the radio once in 2004, I'm relating pretty hard right off the bat. She's actually got a really fun kit, being an agile glass cannon with the ability to stealth as both an entry and an exit option. I especially loved her sweet-ass slide move, which could either be leveled up into an even faster slide that damages all foes you connect with, or a more offensive combo attack, kicking somebody up into the air at the end of the slide like this is a fighting game or something. You can start to see how different strategies and playstyles start to crop up with the different leveling paths you can take with your character and their abilities, which is, you know, absolutely awesome. I mean, look, I know this is probably a feature in plenty of games and MOBAs out there, I think, but this is my first time playing with something like this, and I thought it was really cool and fun, okay? It was exciting to just look over the paths you could spec your hero towards, and it made a bunch of otherwise simple and perhaps even slightly boring abilities a lot more compelling. As a newbie, when you read these and start piecing together how certain skills can complement each other and work to form new different strategies, it's just a blast, man. After a couple games like this with this character, I'm feeling pretty good, but I decided to switch things up a little bit. I opt now to play the jetpacking dual pistol Lady Beckett. I also land on a different map this time, this one being my favorite by far out of the 3 currently available in the game. All of the levels are pretty, and they're visually varied, but this one feels a lot more open, with a good mix of long sightlines and more enclosed areas, I thought. And it's also more recognizable, I suppose. There's enough change in the environment from one side of the map to the other to be able to tell where everything is in relation to each other a bit better. It's a lot easier to make a mental map in your head when you've got this small bit of variance to distinguish everything. And I think that man-made structures are a lot easier to kind of catalog in your head over natural features like pillars of ice or pillars of sandy rock. They were trying with those levels. I can tell they were. In the desert level, for example, all the different points each have their own kind of visual hook to them. This one's a cave, this one's got like a scientist, water around it. This one's a big old grate near a cliff. But it still tends to just all run together a bit, at least when you're first getting used to it. So when the developers add new maps to the game, I hope they're more similar to the Mossy Ruins level. They've already got like 4 new maps in the works, and a ton of heroes at various stages of completion as well, actually, so it probably won't be long until we see where they go with it. Motika has a lot of content lined up to be released pretty consistently for the game in general, which is pretty cool. Smart too, I think. It was definitely a good idea to just focus on polishing the core of what they had for the official release, and instead having all the extra content on the back burner. Having a constant stream of new content and characters also keeps people excited and into the game after release, of course. It's the kind of thing that most of the player base will appreciate a lot more if it's drip-fed to them, instead of being handed over all at once with a long period of nothing afterwards, I think. Especially since a lot of us are probably new to the game at this point and still have plenty to figure out with what's already here. Such as the jetpacking dual pistol lady, Beckett. I didn't really like jetpacking dual pistol lady Beckett much at first sight. There's nothing wrong with her, but aesthetically she just didn't win me over is all. That quickly changed once I jumped into a match with her though. Her pistols in particular feel really good to fire. I don't dig every single one of her skills like I did with Trip, the grenade is pretty boring to me, but having the bread and butter primary attack of the character feel so good is a fair trade-off, I guess. Especially if you upgrade them to the more accurate burst fire mode, that was pretty fun. And the longer range rocket was more satisfying than I expected too, at least if you've got the talent to actually land a shot with the thing. So by now I've got a few games under my belt, and I've earned enough currency to purchase my dude Taito, Owl Mask in the flesh. But this is where my grave mistake, my miscalculation, revealed itself. You see, I was under the impression that I would actually be able to play this character. Obviously, the game had different intentions. There's always a Taito the Swift, it's impossible. So, yeah. There's your grand payoff for this video title. I know, my ability to construct a gripping narrative is unmatched. Thank you, thank you. At least I'm able to play around with the character in practice mode. Taito is a similar class to Trip. They're both considered assassins, but where Trip is more of a spring from the shadows, slip somebody's throat and slip away kind of deal, Taito doesn't have the ability to stealth, so relies on pure agility instead. Got a sweet leap attack, a goofy spin to win strategy, and a rat to throw at people, which isn't really that satisfying to damage with, but you can upgrade yourself to being able to teleport to anyone hit with the rat, which is definitely cool. You can summon the NPC monsters to fight in practice mode too, though I'm not sure how useful that is. Maybe I just don't quite get the whole creature summoning thing in the first place, though I do think it's an interesting addition that further separates the game from its contemporaries. In Gigantic, you're not just trying to kill the other team of heroes. Now, objective-based games like this are nothing new, but Gigantic tries to have this other element of kind of NPC fighting as well. Interestingly, the game's roots trace back to MMOs instead of MOBAs. The devs essentially wanted to combine both PvP and PvE mode styles from an MMO into one game at the same time, with dungeons and NPC bosses and other competing teams thrown in. The game has definitely evolved away from that original concept a bit, but you can still see how pieces of it have impacted the game in its current form. Instead of attacking opposing buildings or pushing carts or capturing points, you're trying to power up your own friendly giant boss monster enough to beat up the enemy one. When this happens, there's a period of vulnerability where your team has to rush in and try and damage it as much as possible, and this definitely can remind one of raiding in an MMO or something. Only, in this game you've also got to deal with the other team of real players trying to stop you from doing just that. There are also points on each map where players can summon their own NPC creatures to kind of guard the area around it. You can choose from a variety of creature types with each having different effects, from healing nearby friendly players to closing off routes through the map for the enemy team. These NPC monsters can also be attacked and killed, but are probably a lot stronger than you might expect the first time you see one, so this can end up being a lot like a little mini-boss in some ways. I'm not sure how I feel about these systems personally. I like having just a little extra something to be able to do and strategize how things play out, but it also feels kind of unfulfilling sometimes, maybe. I'm not quite sure what it is. The giant mascots that fight as the backdrop of each round is neat, but it feels at times like a more convoluted way of keeping score. Most of your time is spent just trying to kill the opposing team, not die, keep your squad alive, and that kind of thing. Then something dramatic happens with the Guardians, the giant mascot dudes, and you're like, oh yeah! Right, so we gotta get points to feed to our Guardian so that it can start attacking the other Guardian so that we can start attacking the other Guardian. But if we fail to, then everything resets, but it's easier to try again next time, where it'll happen again, but we won't need to do as much damage to fully damage the Guardian, and then it'll lose a hit point, but if it was already close to losing a hit point, then the next time it gets attacked by our Guardian, we don't even need to attack it because it'll automatically lose the hit point because we did enough damage last time. And alright, yeah, I'm just gonna go back to feeding with my emo teenage assassin because I play characters based on how cool they are regardless of team comp or any other considerations. If that's cool with you, Gigantic, the video game. Like, I'm just saying, it's not the most intuitive thing I've ever seen. That said, I am a new player, and I'm sure it's pretty easy to pick up the systems after a little more time spent in the game. But I guess my point is that I'm not sure if the sacrifice of simplicity is worth it. It just feels like there needs to be another layer of interaction here, or some tweaking of how it all works to make everything click into place or something. Anyway, though, again, I think the game is awesome. The art style is great, the character designs, in my opinion, are very unique, animations are super slick and polished, and ultimately the game is just fun to play. I hope that Gigantic can find a place for itself in the current gaming landscape. I hope that people will be willing to try it before dismissing it as another Overwatch clone or a Smite ripoff, and I look forward to playing more of it and seeing where the developers take things from here.